Hello YouTube, my name is Rachel Mayo. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. I'm going to be talking about Mars retrograde. Mars has been transiting his own sign of Aries for about almost a month now. Mars is going to go retrograde from the 9th of September until the 13th of November. Mars has a 2-year cycle. That means the last time he went retrograde was sometime in 2017. On the 26th of July, Mars entered his retrograde shadow at 14 degrees Aries. He is going to go retrograde on the 9th of September until the 13th of November. That will be from 15 degrees to 28 degrees. So if you have any planets on those points, a few degrees before or a few degrees after, you're definitely going to be affected. And most of all, people who are born on the 9th of September are going to have this energy for their solar return chart. Mars is going to eventually leave his retrograde zone on the 21st of January 2021. So as you can see, people, we are going to have Mars in Aries for a very long time. Things to watch out for while Mars is retrograde. Don't speed, drive safely. If you decide to start a workout regimen, make sure not to over-exercise or overestimate how much strength you have. But most of us might be trying to make up for lost workouts because of the pandemic. So just be very careful not to strain yourself. Stay away from angry people and combative people or drunk people. And most of all, avoid being one of those people. Mars rules our vital energy. That is our energy to pick up and go and do something. So if you find yourself feeling lazy or rather lethargic, just know that it's because Mars is retrograde. For people who like working out all the time, you might find that you're not so interested in working out at this time. And also it rules our sexual energy. People may actually lose interest in sex, or if they still have the interest, their performance might not be as good as it usually is. So blame that on Mars. Another thing to watch out for, you will notice that people who are usually not aggressive are going to become aggressive at this time. So try to pick your battles wisely. Don't go and start a fight with a person don't start a fight with a person who usually just takes your shit, because this time they might actually hit back and they might hit hard. And for those people who are trying to initiate projects or start new businesses, it's not really necessarily that it's not going to work out, but if you're starting a business that needs action and a lot of physical energy, unfortunately that type of business might not be successful, or it might just be very challenging and you might find a lot of resistance to get things going. Or you might have to just work a lot harder than you would if Mars was moving direct. We're all going to have to exercise some patience during this transit and pick your battles wisely. Let's look at what Mars rules in the natal zodiac. Mars rules the sign of Aries and also co-rules the sign of Scorpio along with Pluto. Mars rules over our ability to take action and sometimes, if needed, aggressive action. Mars also rules over the police, the military, the army. Mars also rules weapons, knives, also rules cars and real estate. Competition and sports are also ruled by Mars. So we all have to definitely watch out for our temper during this transit. Try not to initiate fights or conflicts. This is not the time. As you can see, we're heading into a period of a lot of conflict, anger, aggression, and frustration. Right now, Mars is in shadow in the sign of Aries, has not yet gone retrograde. Already so much violence is happening out there, and it's only going to get worse. When Mars goes retrograde, it tends to bring up old issues and old annoyances, old arguments and resentments. The main aspect of this transit is going to be Mars squaring Saturn. I'm going to discuss how this is going to affect you personally when I read for your ascendant. But this is the point of friction. This is the reason why, this is the main reason why there will be so much angst and conflict and frustration towards the government and authority figure. On a personal level, we all have to watch out for being triggered by others. So when that happens, just realize that Mars is going retrograde. You might not be able to resolve this conflict right away. So if you get triggered, which is most likely going to happen, make sure you're watching your temper. Make sure you watch how you react. This is a transit that could potentially change the course of your life. You're probably wondering how long this transit is going to last. Well, Mars retrograde transit lasts for about 2 months. So you're looking at 8 to 10 weeks. That is a very long time for being annoyed, frustrated, and triggered. So if you want to understand how Mars is going to affect you personally, look at the house which is ruled by Aries, because this is where Mars is going to be positioned, and this is going to be the source of your anger. Also find the house of Capricorn, because this is where Saturn is transiting, and this is the source of blockage and resistance. Another important thing to look at is to find out how your own natal Mars is aspected. If your Mars is well aspected in your natal birth chart, then you might not find Mars retrograde transits very challenging. On the other hand, if your natal Mars is not well aspected, you're going to find this transit very challenging. The people who have Mars in Sagittarius and Leo are going to find this transit a lot easier. Mars is going to be forming a harmonious aspect called a trine. Unfortunately, this transit is going to be quite challenging for the cardinal signs. That is Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, because Mars is going to be forming an opposition to Libra and a square to Capricorn and Cancer. This transit is going to affect everyone personally and all of mankind. This transit is going to affect everybody personally, very intimately. But most of all is going to affect Aries, because they are naturally of a martial nature, and they are ruled by this, and they're ruled by the planet Mars. Mars transit is usually very positive and strong in the sign of Aries if it's not being squared by planets in Capricorn. Right now there's a stellium in Capricorn that is Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. Saturn being the ruler of the sign of Capricorn, and the other planets are all outer planets, karmic planets. Even though Mars is in his own sign, he's really dealing with some big shots. So unfortunately, Mars is going to lose the battle. So unfortunately, during this transit, Saturn has the upper hand. That is, the authority figures and the government have the upper hand at this time. So if you come up against authority figures or the government, just know that they have the upper hand. People born with a natal retrograde Mars might find this transit a little less challenging, because they're already used to the nature of Mars being retrograde in their chart. But unfortunately, nobody is used to Mars being squared by Saturn. To give an example, Mars square Saturn aspect feels like you're driving with the brakes on. Mars in Aries usually likes to just take charge and just keep going. Unfortunately, at this time, you have to take small steps, stop, inspect, look around, and then proceed. During this transit, we're all going to become aware of the gifts and challenges of Mars. We're also going to become aware of our inner aggression and impulsive nature. So if you think people are angry at this time, well, during this Mars retrograde, people are going to get angrier, and there will definitely be more riots. Mars is ruled by the element of fire, hence the fires and the burnings of buildings. That's also unfortunately going to continue. And this is where the square aspect comes in, because the government is also going to have a heavy hand and they're not going to go for it. So there will be a lot of police action, and probably the National Guard will be deployed in the cities where there will be all these rioting. However, this clash is not going to stop. This is going to be a standoff for probably the next 2 months. I'm going to give you some general advice. If you happen to get into a conflict, wait for the other person to initiate the argument. Or if you are planning to sue somebody, wait for the other person to be the one to initiate the lawsuit. Mars retrograde is not a time to initiate any aggressive action because you will lose. So essentially this means wait for the other person to take the first action. Wait for the other person to sue you. Wait for the other person to attack you. Because the person that initiates aggressive actions towards another person during a Mars retrograde is sure to be the loser. So stand back, bide your time, and wait for the other person to take action. For people that own real estate or people that are planning to buy a car at this time, this is not the time to buy either. If you do buy a car during a Mars retrograde transit, you're going to find out that you bought a lemon. This usually happens right after the transit ends. And for people who are wanting to buy real estate at this time, unfortunately, this is not the best time for you to do so. If you do happen to buy real estate at this time, at the end of this transit, you're going to find out that the house has a lot of structural problems, and you're probably going to end up paying much more than you bargained for. So if you're trying to invest in a car or real estate, I suggest you wait for this transit to be over. Don't get tempted by the low rate. It's a trap for you to end up in a money pit. If you're new to my channel and have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. If you're new to my channel and have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button. It's right below this video, the red button. Please hit the subscribe button. It's right below this video, the red button. Aries ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is transiting your sign. You're hosting your ruling planet at this time. Mars is on your ascendant. You're going to feel very energetic and very empowered. Unfortunately, when Mars begins his retrograde transit, you're going to feel a slump, you're going to feel lethargic, you're going to feel tired, and you might also feel withdrawn. Mars conjunct your ascendant is going to square Saturn in your 10th house. This is the area where you're going to meet resistance from authority figures or from the work or from your job. During this transit, you have to exercise a lot of patience with your authority figures or with people at your job. Things may not quite go your way. If I were you, I would not try to go against authority figures or start an argument with anyone at my job. If the argument is started by the other person, of course you have to defend yourself. Just be aware that even though you're feeling frustrated and somewhat empowered because you have all this Mars energy that you unfortunately can't use, be aware that the other person has the upper hand at your job. Be aware that if you act impulsive or initiate conflicts, you are going to lose this battle. If this has been an ongoing issue, this is the time it's going to come to a head. Depending on what the issue is, if you can wait it out until Mars goes direct in your sign, that would be a better time to go against the people or whatever situation it is that you have going on at work. And unfortunately, some people might either quit or be let go at this time. To a Taurus ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your 12th house. This is the area where you're going to find conflict, frustration, and resistance. Mars transiting the 12th house is already uncomfortable without being retrograde. The 12th house is the area where you cannot express this anger or frustration outwards. Mars in the 12th house causes insomnia. So that is sleepless nights. And when you do sleep, you might actually have violent dreams. You're going to feel powerless because you have this internal anger and you feel like you can't, and you're going to feel like you can't express it outwards. Mars from your 12th house is going to square the planets in Capricorn in your 9th house. You might have frustration and internal anger towards people that you actually looked up to, people like professors or religious leaders. Other people might have issues with the law. If you're trying to get paperwork done, say perhaps you filed for a green card, you're going to find resistance and conflicts at this time. Things are not going to go exactly as you thought they would. You might have to present more paperwork in order for things to get moving your way. If you have self-sabotaging habits, at this time you may come in conflict with the law. The square is from the hidden house to the house of law. So you can just read between the lines. You know already what it is that you're doing and should not be doing. And if you have something which is valid that you want to argue about or bring a case about, I would wait for the transit to be over and do it when Mars is more powerful in your first house, when it starts transiting your sign Taurus. Gemini ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is currently transiting the 11th house. That is the house of your friendships, the groups that you belong to, and your hopes and wishes. Some Geminis may find conflict between their friends and their intimate partnerships, or there'll be conflict between your hopes and wishes and the funding that you need to get from other people's money in the 8th house. Others will find conflict with their intimate partner who might not approve of the group that they belong to or the friendships that they have. So the area of focus for the next 2 months is your friendships and your intimate relationship, other people's money, and the groups that you belong to. Only you can know exactly what is going on in your chart personally, but just know that this area is highlighted for the next few months. You should also be aware that Saturn is actually more powerful at this time. So whoever you're bumping heads with, they are probably going to have the upper hand on this issue. Cancer ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your 10th house. This is the area you will find conflict, frustration, and resistance. Mars is transiting Aries, your 10th house, and is going to be square the energy in your 7th house. Mars is going to square Saturn. Mars is transiting Aries in your 10th house. Saturn is transiting your 7th house. So this situation looks like you have some frustrations at your job or something to do with your standing in society, and this frustration is being released towards your partner. Your partner at this time has the upper hand. Whatever frustrations you're experiencing with your job, they should not interfere with your relationship. The two are separate issues, and unfortunately both these areas are angle houses. The 10th house is the MC and the 7th house is the descendant. When these two angles have planets that are in square, they are essentially in a battle. You're definitely going to feel this transit. Unfortunately, this is the time that their marriage might come to an end. Some people, their partner might ask them to choose between their job, standing in society, or their partnership or marriage. If there's no resolution to this conflict, I suggest that you wait for your partner to initiate the divorce or the aggressive action, because if they initiate the divorce or the aggressive action, they're the ones who are going to lose. So if I were you, I would not be threatening divorce or any type of legal action at this time. Let the other party initiate any type of legal action, because if they initiate any legal action during a Mars retrograde, they're going to lose. So just remember that I did warn you on this one. Leo ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going to go retrograde in your 9th house. This is the area where you're going to find frustrations, delays, and conflict. Mars transiting your 9th house is going to come up against the stellium in Capricorn, namely Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. The 9th house rules over things like the law, our belief system, foreign lands, and things like religion. The 6th house rules what we do for work, our daily routine, health, and our diet. So you're going to find these two houses coming into conflict. So this could read out as you have a legal issue that involves your work area, or you could have been hurt at work or got ill from you know what and are planning to sue your work, and you're planning to sue your job. So if indeed you have legal issues, I would suggest that you wait for this transit to be over, because the person in the 6th house, that is your employer, is more powerful at this time. Or if you have a conflict with co-workers, you're going to lose this conflict if you initiate any type of aggressive action. So try and control your temper and wait for this transit to be over before you initiate anything. However, if your employer or your co-workers come at you and you have to defend yourself, then they are going to be the ones who are going to have the losing hand, because they initiated an aggressive action during a Mars retrograde transit. On the other hand, if you're planning to make some major changes at your work, this is not the time to do so. If you're trying to make some major changes to your daily routine or your diet, Leo, only you can know what is exactly personally going on in your 9th house of law and religion and foreign lands that is in trouble or in square with your 6th house, your daily routine, or your work. This is the area that is highlighted for the next 2 months. This is the area you have to practice patience and avoid getting into conflicts. Virgo ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your 8th house. This is the area where you're going to experience delays, frustration, and conflict. Mars in Aries, your 8th house, is very powerful in this house because this is also the house that he rules in the natural zodiac. But he's coming up against Capricorn. He's coming up against Saturn, who's transiting his own sign of Capricorn, and Saturn has a lot of backing because he has Pluto and Jupiter in this house. This could be a situation where you're very fired up about starting something that concerns the 5th house, that is the house of entertainment, your children, and your romantic relationship. This is the area or the people and issues that are going to be more powerful. The 5th house is the area where you're going to find resistance and conflict. And this is the area that is actually has the upper hand and is more powerful than whatever you have going on in the 8th house. Only you knows exactly what's going on in the house of other people's money. Is it a loan or a mortgage? Unfortunately, this retrograde transit is going to affect your sexual performance or your stamina. Transiting Mars going retrograde in your 12th house is not an ideal time to have surgery because Mars rules the surgeon and it rules the knife. So with Mars going backwards, you just know that the result is not going to be what you expected. So if I were you, I would wait until this transit is over to have any type of surgery, unless if the surgery is not elective. Libra ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your 7th house. This is the area that you're going to find frustration, anger, and conflict and resistance. Mars rules your descendant, your 7th house, where it's actually transiting now. And when Mars is transiting the 7th house, it tends to make your partner a bit more aggressive. And unfortunately, at this time, your partner is much more powerful than you are. So that means Mars is opposing your ascendant. Essentially, that means your partner is opposing you. And if that wasn't bad enough, you have Mars in square to Saturn in your 4th house. So your 7th house and your 4th house, the 4th house is also an angle house. So these are both very powerful points. And unfortunately, since Saturn is also transiting his own house of Capricorn, and he has along with him Pluto and Jupiter, this house is much more powerful. So the issues that you may have going on at home are in conflict with your marriage or your partner. That could be your partner is not agreeing perhaps with the house or car that you want to buy, or your partner is not agreeing with your mother. And a result of all this conflict, you're found in the middle. Unfortunately, with this conflict, Saturn is more powerful. So it could be your mother that wins the argument against your partner. And this conflict might go on for about 2 months. So be prepared to exercise a lot of patience with your mother or family regarding issues concerning your marriage or your partnership. Only you, Libra, knows exactly what's going on between your home area and your marriage area. That is the area where you're going to find all this anger, resistance, and conflict. Scorpio ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is currently transiting his own house of Aries in your 6th house. Mars is usually very powerful in this house. Mars is there to fight your enemies and fight whatever diseases that you may have going on at this time. Unfortunately, during this transit, he's going to be squaring Capricorn, who is transiting your third house. Capricorn is hosting Pluto, your other ruler, and Jupiter at this time. So he is very powerful in his own house. Even though Mars is there to defend and fight for you, he's fighting against some really big dogs. Third house is the area of your immediate environment, your siblings, and your neighbors. The sixth house is the area of what you do for work, your daily routine, your diet, and your co-workers. So the conflict and the argument is between these two houses. So essentially, you could have something going on with your neighbor that is not in agreement with what it is that you're doing for work, or your co-workers could be in conflict with your neighbor or your sibling. Only you, Scorpio, knows exactly what this argument and conflict is about. Even though Mars is very powerful in the sixth house and is a defender, he is not going to win the battle against the third house. So keep that in mind. However, if your sibling or neighbor initiates a conflict against you at this time, you're going to win this battle. So the key here is not to be the initiator of any conflict or any type of lawsuits. As long as it's the other party who's the initiator, they're the ones who are going to lose during this Mars retrograde transit. They're going to even empower your Mars. They're going to empower your Mars much more. For other people, it could have something to do with your means of transportation and your work. Maybe your car is going to break down at this time. This will affect your travel and how you get to work. So this could be the area of conflict, that you may have no means of transportation to continue working. This may be the cause of conflict and arguments. When Saturn is transiting your third house, it could make you very serious about communication, and perhaps your co-workers might not appreciate your tone when you speak to them, and this could also be the area of conflict. It could be many situations. Only you, Scorpio, knows exactly what this is about. Just be aware that it's going to be a battleground and that the initiator of the conflict will lose this battle. Sagittarius, ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your fifth house. This is the area where you're going to find conflict. This is the area where you're going to find conflict, anger, and frustration. This could literally mean that you're angry at your lover, your children, or you're dissatisfied with a creative project. The area where you're going to find resistance is in your second house, where Saturn is currently transiting. Saturn rules the sign of Capricorn, and he has two guests, that is Pluto and Jupiter. This makes this house very powerful. The second house rules over what we do to earn a living. It is also the area of our self-esteem. So you could have a conflict between your romantic partner and something to do with what you do for a living. These two areas are not in agreement. Or you could have a creative project that you're trying to get funding for, and you're getting resistance from banks. For other people, this could be a situation with their children. Mars transiting the fifth house tends to make children very aggressive and active at this time. When Mars transits the fifth house, it tends to make your children want to be very active and aggressive. And unfortunately for most people during this pandemic, the activities that you can do with your children are very limited. And for some other people, since the second house has to do with earned money, it could be that you cannot finance the activities that your children are wanting to get into. Or perhaps your romantic partner wants to take a vacation and you're unable to provide the funds for this vacation. Only you, Sagittarius, knows exactly what the conflict is between these two houses. Just be aware to exercise patience with your children and your romantic lover. Capricorn rising, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your fourth house. This is the area where you're going to find resistance, anger, and frustration. The fourth house is an angle house, and when Mars transits this point, we definitely feel his energy. He makes his energy very well known. You could have loud renovations going on in your home, or you could have conflicts with your family. With Mars going retrograde, he is going to bring up old issues that you may have had going on in this area. Unfortunately, it could also bring up deep hidden issues or resentments that you may have towards your mother or your family. Capricorn, this is a very personal transit for you because you have 2 points in your chart activated, 2 very personal charts. The 4th house is the most personal and deep area of our chart. Saturn is transiting your 1st house along with Pluto and Jupiter. So this is really karmic and personal. All the issues that you have going on with your 1st house, all the issues that you have going on between you and your family or your mother, these are issues that you're going to be facing for the next 2 months. And because the planets that are transiting your sign are very karmic, the planets that are transiting in your 1st house are very karmic and powerful. 4th house also rules over our past. You might be in conflict with your ancestral issues and family secrets. The positive aspect of this transit is that you're in charge because Saturn is more powerful in this square against Mars. And Saturn has also a lot of backing because he has other planets who are also ganging up on Mars. So essentially, whoever comes up against you at this time, if they initiate the conflict, they're probably going to lose this argument. These are old issues you're dealing with your family or your mother. So this is going to be a major battle. Just make sure you're not the one who initiates any aggressive action, because the person that initiates aggressive action during a Mars retrograde transit loses the battle. Just keep that in mind, Capricorn. Aquarius ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your 3rd house. This is the area you're going to experience delays, frustration, and conflict. The 3rd house rules over things like our immediate environment, our siblings, and our neighbors. Mars is going to square Saturn, who's transiting your 12th house. So your 3rd house is going to be in square with your 12th house. The 12th house is the area of self-sabotage, our hidden enemies, and whatever it is that we do behind closed doors. This is the area where Saturn, your other ruling planet, is transiting. This makes this area very strong. Saturn is transiting his own house, and he has Pluto and Jupiter along with him. So essentially, this makes your hidden enemy or whatever self-sabotaging habits that you have going on more powerful than whatever it is that you can say. And when Mars is transiting the 3rd house, it can make you very aggressive in your speech, make you very aggressive in how you speak to others. Aquarius, this is a very precarious situation because we can never know what our hidden enemy is doing behind our backs. That's why they're hidden, because they're behind our backs. So before you have any aggressive or rude words to throw at somebody who's attacking you, be careful how you speak to people, because you have a very aggressive tone. And since you don't know who your hidden enemies are, you could find that you're being aggressive towards a hidden enemy who is actually much more powerful than you are at this time. Also remember that the person who initiates aggressive action towards an enemy at this time is the person that loses the battle. For some people, this could be a conflict that has to do with someone in a foreign land, or you could be traveling in a foreign land at this time. So if you are traveling, make sure you're very polite to whoever you're speaking to or whoever you come in contact with. This is not the time to be rude and aggressive. Aquarius, only you can know what's really going on in these 2 houses. So these are the 2 houses that are going to be highlighted for the next 2 months. So whatever it is that you're planning, be mindful that it's not probably going to go exactly as you planned. Exercise some patience and please be polite. Pisces ascendant, sun or moon. Mars is going retrograde in your 2nd house. Mars in the second house tends to make you become a workaholic, so you end up making a lot of money. But unfortunately, Mars in the second house will also make you spend that money, so you might become a shopaholic. Mars is in square to the Capricorn stellium in your 11th house. Unfortunately, during this square aspect, Saturn is more powerful than Mars. Saturn is transiting his own sign, and he has Pluto and Jupiter along with him. So if you come into a conflict about values, perhaps with your friends or in the groups that you belong to, just keep in mind that they are more powerful than you are at this time. Mars in the second house could also make you become very aggressive and impulsive in your speech. You might actually be very rude at this time, and the people in your group and the people in the groups that you belong to are not going to appreciate it. So don't be surprised if you get kicked out of a group that you belong to because perhaps of the things that you say impulsively. This could be an argument about money or values. Some people could have an argument with a friend over values or money. Some people could be trying to get membership to a group, and this group may be asking for a lot of money for you to join, or you might get denied membership. Only you know exactly what is going on between these two houses of earned money, your friends, groups that you belong to. So this is the area that you have to watch your temper, watch your impulsive nature, watch your speech, and be mindful that the people in the 11th house are actually more powerful than you are at this time. Try not to initiate any aggressive action towards a friend at this time, because if you're the initiator, unfortunately, you're going to be the person that loses this conflict.